For some of you who are looking at alternative careers, the pharma industry really offers quite exciting prospects for a doctor who wants to move out of pure clinical practice. Now, to drive those insights, and again, this session is entitled Driving Healthcare Differently in Pharma, the Doctor's Guide to Thriving in the Pharma Sectors. So you have 3 doctors here, which have been introduced already. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off by getting each of them to share their journey as a doctor and how they ended up in the pharma sector. Now, I'm going to start over to you, Doctor.
So, just to, from the beginning, I think after graduation, unfortunately, I came from a university which was not recognized in Malaysia, so I actually had to be attached with HUKM. I gave 2 attempts for medical qualification exam. Thereafter, then only I managed to start a career. When I started, immediately I started exploring other countries. I actually then gave exam. I gave a lot of exam in my life, by the way. I started giving exam for Australian Medical Council. Although Malaysia, I had to give the exam twice, but fortunately for Australian exam, I cleared both the attempts at one go. I made quite a few trips to Australia to do my exams. I was attached almost a year in Australia. Unfortunately, the only positions I got in Australia was very remote GP position.
That's a normal thing, right? They always send you to the rural areas.
Correct. So all Malaysian which goes to Australia, they get thrown like few hundred kilometers from the main CBDs. So I found that very boring. So my calling, or where I start understanding the role in pharma, started when I attended one of the course in Monash, which was related to health economics. So the course was actually organized by Bayer. They were really talking about how industry actually helps to make decision on which are the right population to be treated, and how do we allocate enough fund to make sure we improve patients' life. I was fortunate that I had some friends in Malaysia who were already working in the industry. I came back, and actually Dr. Vignesh gave me the first opportunity at Pharma. I was attached with Pfizer for 3 months. Then I went to become the MSL in MSD, and they were launching immuno-oncology for the first time, which was a groundbreaking treatment for cancer. And that was my first love with cancer. I think we talk a lot about cancer treatment, cancer awareness, but then in medical school we do not get that much of exposure. My real exposure really came in MSD, and really have been very passionate about how do we improve cancer patients' life in Malaysia. So past 7 years, really, that has been the focus. And recently, actually, I went on to, a bigger role to cover different therapeutic areas.
So my path into pharmaceutical, right, is a bit different from how Balaraj had entered pharma. So I graduated from a public university, from University Putra Malaysia. So then I did my housemanship. It was just a traditional pathway. Did my housemanship for 2 years in Johor, in Hospital Sultan Aminah. Then I transitioned into a medical officer. So this was the time before the contract doctors happened. So then I went into medical officer in Johor also, in Hospital Sultan Aminah. I was 1 year as a medical officer there. At that point in time, after my housemanship, so during housemanship, I had to go through all the medical postings. And I knew that time already, I knew that I was not into clinical so much. So then after my housemanship ended, I had actually requested to go to a non-clinical department. I was expecting probably I would get something like pathology or blood bank, but then I got forensics. So I was in forensics in Johor for about a year. And yes, I had to do autopsies every day and everything. So that's something that people don't really know about me. So when they find out, they're a bit shocked that I can do that for a year. So I had to do autopsies over 100 bodies actually for that year. So then after that, because I'm from KL, my family is in KL, so I had requested to transfer to KL, and I got HKL. So in HKL also, I had requested for a non-clinical department because at that time I was already 1 year. I didn't do any clinical work in the hospital. I did a lot of locums in GP and everything, but I was already out of touch with clinical in hospital setting. But unfortunately in HKL, there were no spots for non-clinical, so they had given me actually medical department. So medical in HKL is very crazy. So I was there for almost a year, and then I decided after I've had finished all my compulsory service with MOH, then I decided to resign and went to do GP. So at that time, I had no idea with pharmaceutical, the only things that I knew, because the only interaction I had with pharma was with the medical sales rep. So for me, my perspective that time was in pharma is all about all about sales, the sales rep and everything. I didn't know about medical affairs in pharma. So while I was in GP, a headhunter had actually reached out to me. They found my CV. I think I had uploaded somewhere in JobStreet. So they had found my CV and said, "Oh, your CV seems suitable for this role. It's MSL role. Do you want to try out for an interview?" So I tried out for an interview in one of the pharma companies. I did not get that role, the MSL role there, but then I did my own research from there. I started to research more about MSL. Then I had applied on my own to MSLs, as MSL role in other pharma companies. So one of them was Novartis. So I actually had started out my MSL career in Novartis for 2 years in the rheumatology portfolio.
I'm a medical doctor by profession. I joined the service many, many years ago, and I came through it, did my compulsory service, and I subsequently decided to leave the service for different reasons, and I was a GP. In fact, I started as a GP in Johor Bahru. I joined a practice, my cousin's practice there, and I subsequently came back to KL. I am KL born and bred. Came back to KL. I was with a group known as Kumpulan Medic, which incidentally and interestingly changed, is now Qualitas. So I was a GP practicing with them for about 4 or 5 years. At that point in time, I became bored, right? Incidentally, while I was a GP and I had time, I did a diploma in freelance journalism. I like to write, right? So that was one of my other passions, right? Writing and communication. So I became a bit bored, right? I'm being candid here. Just became bored and decided I needed to try something a bit different. And in those days, not many people had really heard of pharma and what medical does in it. But incidentally, someone told me this. And actually, I got my job in Pfizer because I was sitting in one of the GP clinics, and these Pfizer medical reps turned up. And we started having a chat. He said, "Dr. Vignesh, there's actually a place in Pfizer, why don't you apply?" Right? So I got to know about the pharmaceutical industry. I knew I'd applied to a couple of companies, but these reps came and told me, so I applied, and as luck and destiny would have it, I joined Pfizer as a medical manager. Now, an interesting story here, because I'd been a practicing doctor by then for about 10, 12 years, So when I got the job in Pfizer, I went and told my late mom, God bless his soul, "Mom, I'm leaving the practice and I'm going to join the pharmaceutical industry." My mother cried. She just broke down and cried. I said, "Why? No, you're a doctor. Are you sure you can do this?" This goes to show, again, that, the understanding then was, if you're a doctor, you carry on, government service, GP, specialist, right? So I had to console my mom and tell her, "Don't worry." And then I kept my fingers crossed to make sure, I didn't make a mistake, right? But again, as destiny and fate would have it, I have no regrets. So I joined Pfizer as a medical, they called it then medical manager, product physician, etc. Pfizer Malaysia, and we also covered Singapore, right? So I was covering both Malaysia and Singapore. And it was very interesting because I think the pharmaceutical industry allows a doctor to use your practical knowledge, your scientific knowledge, but then other skills come into play. And as Brian said, we probably will speak about it later. So I was in Pfizer for I was in Pfizer 17 years. I went from medical manager to the medical director for Pfizer Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei. And in between, I also did some work across the region in Vietnam to share my experience, different healthcare setting, very interesting.